50,000 years ago, in the harsh wilderness of ancient Mesopotamia, someone got hurt, really hurt. He lost an arm, took a blow to the head, limped on a broken leg, and might have been blind in one eye, and somehow he lived. This isn't the story of a mythical warrior. This is the real-life survival saga of a Neanderthal called Drogan. And what his bones tell us flips everything we thought we knew about these ancient humans. Because this isn't just a fossil. It's evidence of suffering, survival, and a strange kind of care. Childhood among Neanderthals was no picnic. Much like today's great apes, young Drogan's early years would have been filled with wonder, curiosity, and danger. And in an Ice Age world, danger meant more than scraped knees. It meant hypothermia, starvation, or being eaten. Living as roaming hunter-gatherers in a bitter climate meant kids had to grow up faster, not at all. Teeth from a young Neanderthal found in western France show signs of extreme stress, possibly from disease, hunger, or a brutal winter. The Ice Age didn't care about baby teeth, and those teeth got off easy. At a cave called La Garde Noire, scientists found a scene straight out of a horror film. 2 adults, 2 teens, 2 kids disassembled, hacked up, and mixed with animal bones. All signs point to one grim reality: cannibalism. We don't know what drove them to it: desperation, ritual, or something else entirely. But it makes you wonder, if Drogan's tribe faced a bad winter, did they ever look at their own with hungry eyes? But life wasn't all blood and bones. About 80,000 years ago, a Neanderthal family settled near today's Normandy coast, leaving behind something beautiful. Amid the dunes, archaeologists uncovered 257 ancient footprints, most of them from children. The smallest ones came from a toddler, barely 2 years old. Imagine them, giggling as they stomped through the sand, chasing each other, collecting shells, or clutching their mother's hand, maybe with a curious wolf trailing behind. A prehistoric day at the beach, frozen in time. Back to Drogan at some point, he had to learn how to live. Flint knapping wasn't just a skill, it was survival. He would have been taught to shape stone into blades, gut game, and cook over fire. In Blanca, Spain, bird bones show tiny scrape marks, possibly the handiwork of little Neanderthal fingers. Maybe Drogan got his first lesson in butchery, with a dead dove tossed his way, while the adults roasted the real meal. But if his early years were tough, his adulthood was something else. Drogan didn't just survive, he limped through life, with a body that reads like a medical report from hell. At some point, his right side took a catastrophic blow. His forearm was gone. His remaining arm healed but shriveled, useless. Was he gored by an animal? Fell off a cliff? Or was it a fight gone wrong? His skull was also smashed in near the eye socket, blinding him on one side. He limped from leg injuries, had fractures in his foot, and was partially deaf, possibly due to a condition like dish or more blunt trauma, and yet lived for decades. Scientists wonder if Drogan might have been the first known amputation survivor. That would mean someone helped him stop the bleeding, helped him heal. He didn't die alone in the snow. He was looked after, cared for. In a world where food was everything, that's astounding. You don't share meat with someone unless you value them. Even more curious? One Neanderthal found in Spain had poplar bark in their dental plaque. Poplar, a natural source of salicylic acid, the active ingredient in aspirin. Painkillers, Ice Age edition. So all of Drogan's injuries, his crushed skull, his broken bones, while they might be the worst case of prehistoric bad luck, they're also the best proof that Neanderthals had empathy. They didn't just club and grunt their way through life. They treated wounds, they shared food, they showed love. Amazingly, Drogan lived to around 40, a solid age for the era, and, despite everything, his bones show signs of strength and movement. Maybe he even learned to make tools one-handed. He likely skipped the riskier hunts, but survival wasn't optional. Neanderthals didn't have retirement plans. We often picture them battling mammoths on glacial plains, but that wasn't Drogan's world. The climate around his cave, Shanidar Hollow, in what's now northern Iraq, was surprisingly mild, familiar even. Goats, not mammoths, made up most of the diet in his area. Hunting them would have taken skill, patience, and possibly some boulder chucking from above. Goat bones suggest his tribe moved with the seasons wintering in the caves, then pushing into higher ground as the weather warmed. And this pattern still echoes today, with shepherds leading flocks through the same mountains. In nearby Syria, archaeologists found a flint spear embedded in the neck of a wild Assambushed on its way to a seasonal lake, just like Drogan might have done. But big kills didn't last long. Neanderthals needed serious calories. Some estimates say up to 7,000 a day in cold climates, enough to eat 3 reindeer a week, just to keep a group of 10 going. That meant brains, organs, tongue-winothing was wasted. Even bugs and grubs got a spot on the menu when the big game ran dry. A wriggling worm under a log? Gourmet, if you were hungry enough. And that's the story of Drogan mangled, maimed, and yet somehow still moving. His bones are a time capsule of trauma, but also resilience. And maybe, just maybe, kindness. For years, we thought Neanderthals were just meat junkies ripping into goat legs like Ice Age linebackers. But then researchers took a closer look at the gunk wedged between the teeth of another Neanderthal from Shanidar Hollow, let's call him Carr. What they found rewrote the menu. Traces of date palms, wild grasses, tiny seeds like vetch. Not exactly barbecue fare. These seeds are so small and tricky to gather that collecting them would have taken serious effort. No one's wasting hours for a side dish unless it mattered. This wasn't just about taste, it was survival math. A Neanderthal's body ran hot and hard, needing way more calories than ours, but the ripple effects of that went beyond mealtime. Think about Drogan's mother. How much harder was it for her to feed herself while nursing a baby that could out-eat a Labrador? How did Neanderthal women manage this balancing act? How did their tribes scout out landscapes, calculating which valley had enough calories for everyone? And could this constant battle for food, this uphill fight to fuel big, hungry body shave, ultimately push them over the edge? Because when lean, heat-efficient Homo sapiens strolled out of Africa, they might have just been better optimized for famine. Neanderthals could outlift you, outrun you, maybe even outthink you in short bursts, but when the cupboards were bare, skinny endurance may have trumped brute strength. And yet, Neanderthals weren't starving brutes, they were problem solvers. They figured out how to eat just about anything. Turtles, shellfish, even bears taking their winter naps. If it moved, they could eat it. If it didn't move, they'd probably eat it anyway. And their toolkit showed serious ingenuity. One tribe in prehistoric Italy mixed beeswax with resin, heating it over fire to glue spearheads to shafts. That's Stone Age science, and they probably licked the honey spoon afterward. The big tragedy of archaeology? Wood doesn't like to stick around, so most of the wooden gear Neanderthals used is long gone. But occasionally, a miracle happens. At the Abric Cavern in Spain, a soft patch of dirt preserved the shape of a tool flat and trowel-like. What was it? A scooper? A shovel? A prehistoric spatula? We'll never know. But over in Poggetti Vecchi, Italy, researchers uncovered 58 digging sticks, Neanderthal salad tongs, essentially perfect for foraging roots, bulbs, and all those time-intensive seeds Carr was munching on. And then there are the iconic Schoningen spears, nearly 400,000 years old. Perfectly balanced wooden weapons found alongside horse carcasses. No doubt those horses didn't volunteer to be dinner. One recently discovered stick, shaped like a boomerang, might have been a throwing tool, proof that Neanderthals weren't just lobbing rocks, but engineering their hunts with surprising finesse. Most of what we know comes from caves. Their nature's safe school, stable, and mostly untouched. But of course, Neanderthals didn't just sulk in caves 24/7. Outside, life left fewer traces. That's why a site like La Folie in France is so rare. Archaeologists uncovered what looks like an actual camp complete with post holes and zones for flint knapping, butchering, and cooking. Each activity had its place, almost like rooms in a house. This wasn't caveman chaos. This was organization. And it wasn't a one-off. In Kibara, Israel, Neanderthals tossed their waste into designated pile-strash zones, basically. In El Salt, Spain, they even burned their poop. Not exactly glamorous, but undeniably hygienic. These folks had boundaries. At Abrick again, there are hints of lean-tos built inside caves' makeshift walls for comfort and warmth. Had more wood survived, we'd probably be blown away by their carpentry. All of it points to one thing. They didn't just survive in nature. They adapted to it, shaped it, and gave it meaning. They weren't squatting in caves, they were making homes. So what did Drogan think as he trudged back to Shanidar Hollow after a long goat chase? Did the sight of smoke rising from the hearth warm his one working eye? Did he shuffle in, grateful to be off his busted foot, eager to hear the crackle of fire and the grumbling of someone roasting beetles again? Probably, because Neanderthal intelligence wasn't just practical, it bordered on the poetic. They cared about comfort, about space, about rituals. That brings us to one of the weirdest, most mysterious finds of all. Deep beneath the earth in Brunico, France, Neanderthals walked over 300 meters into a pitch-black, wet cave. No sunlight, no exit in sight, just darkness. And there, in that ancient chamber, they broke off stalagmites and arranged them into circles. In the center, they lit small fires. No beds, no cooking gear. Just stone circles in flame. What were they doing down there? If the age and interpretation of those mysterious stalagmite rings in Brunico Cave are accurate, then we've got a serious problem. Because that means Drogan's kind Neanderthals were doing something we didn't expect. Something strange. Maybe even spiritual. What were they thinking? Crouched in the cold, deep underground, breaking and arranging stone columns by firelight. Whatever the answer, one thing is clear. There was more going on in those big brooding skulls than anyone had guessed. And the clues don't stop there. Over in Croatia's Krapina and France's Grote Ren, Neanderthals were making jewelry necklaces made from eagle talons and animal teeth. In Spain, archaeologists uncovered seashells used for mixing pigments, likely to create body paint or decorate objects. And then there's the wildest discovery yet. At 3 sites, Maltravieso, Ardales, and La Pasiegade may have actually painted. The oldest of these hand stencils and symbolic marks are over 60,000 years old. That's 20,000 years before Homo sapiens even showed up in Europe. So, unless time-traveling cavemen were a thing, the only artists around were Neanderthals. Even more bizarre? At La Pasiega, when modern humans finally did arrive, it looks like they saw the Neanderthal symbols and added their own drawings inside them. Like the first ancient collaboration, or perhaps a prehistoric turf war in ochre and charcoal. What were they doing in those caves? Hunting, hibernating bears, perhaps, and while stuck in the dark, their imagination lit up. Or maybe they were performing rituals. We'll never really know. But it's yet another nail in the coffin of the old stereotype of Neanderthals as lumbering, grunting boneheads. Though we don't have clear evidence of artwork from the Shanidar region, we do see traces of symbolic behavior in other ways, like how they buried their dead. Drogan and his clan probably walked those hills gathering seeds, chasing goats, maybe humming their own ancient tunes. And sometimes they bumped into strangers. Some of those strangers looked like them. Others didn't. Because Drogan lived during a weird overlap in history between 40,000 and 55,000 years ago. That's exactly when a band of Homo sapiens left Africa and started filtering into Western Asia. We know what happened next. They didn't just trade hunting tips. They hooked up, had kids, families. And those kids, they're our ancestors. If you're not of recent African descent, you have Neanderthal DNA inside you right now. And even modern Africans have a small amount, thanks to later back migrations. which means that when your distant relatives first wandered out of Africa and into this rugged terrain, they almost certainly met someone like Drogan and it got personal. Think about that. His genosaur, those of his kin, might be quietly chugging away in your bloodstream right now, coding for things like skin tone, immune response, or whether cilantro tastes like soap. And it wasn't just a one-off. As we dig deeper into both fossil sites and genomes, it's becoming obvious. Neanderthals and Homo sapiens didn't just cross paths, they intertwined, again and again. These weren't two separate species glaring at each other across a mammoth carcass. They were variations on the same theme, different verses in the same song. Drogan wasn't an alien. He was human, just a different kind. He would have carried some Homo sapiens DNA already, the same way we carry bits of Neanderthal inside us. These weren't fleeting encounters. They had to be successful unions raising children who thrived and passed on their genes. Which means, at least sometimes, when these two worlds met, it wasn't with spears. But not always. Karth Neanderthal with seeds stuck in his teeth met a darker fate. One of his ribs had a deep, clean cut in it, the kind a weapon might leave. Worse still, the wound had started to heal, would around something, possibly the weapon's tip itself. He survived for a while, maybe weeks. But unlike Drogan, Carr didn't pull through. Was this the result of a clash with Homo sapiens? A territorial dispute? A mugging in the Paleolithic? We'll never know. But given everything we know about our species, it wouldn't be shocking. We're not exactly known for peaceful introductions. And Drogan, for all his resilience, for all the pain he endured and the challenges he survived, might have come to a brutal end too. Evidence suggests he was eventually crushed by a rockfall inside the very cave that had sheltered him for decades. Shanidar Hollow, known even today for its unstable cliffs, may have taken him in and taken him out. It's a poetic ending, in a tragic sort of way. A life spent defying odds, only to be silenced by a final collapse. But Drogan's story doesn't end in rubble. When Drogan's bones were first uncovered in the 1950s, the very idea that Neanderthals might have buried their dead was practically laughed out of academic circles. At the time, burying the dead was seen as a uniquely human trait, a sign of deeper thought, of ritual, of meaning. But 70 years and a mountain of evidence later, we now know Neanderthals weren't just tossing their dead into crevices, they were laying them to rest. The site at Shanidar Hollow is still one of the clearest windows into this. The original archaeologist, Ralph Solon, thought he'd found a single Neanderthal lying on its side in a fetal position, a peaceful pose, like sleep. But as he worked further, things got weirder. 3 more sets of bones, all jumbled together in that same small space. Too close for coincidence. They hadn't died where they fell. They had been placed there. In 2017, a new team of archaeologists returned to Solon's original trench, hoping to unravel the mystery. What they found stunned them. Another burial, one that had been missed. This one lay inside a shallow bowl-shaped depression in the earth, and its head may have been propped against a stone, not something nature tends to arrange. The soil around the body was darker than the surrounding dirt, a sign of decomposed organic material. Some of it was likely just decaying flesh, but not all of it. Scattered through the dark patch were traces of ancient plant matter. Could it have been deliberate? Solon had once made a bold claim that the Neanderthals of Shanidar buried their dead with flowers. His theory was ridiculed for decades. But this new evidence? It just might support him. Were Neanderthals honoring their dead with blooms? Did they press petals into the grave? Did they leave behind tokens or tool symbols of memory or hope? One of the newly found skeletons had a chipped stone tool tucked in its left hand. Was it the person's prized possession? Or was it placed there by someone else just in case it might be needed? Somewhere else? There's no way to know for sure. Research is still ongoing, but the questions keep piling up and they get harder to ignore. Would Drogan have been buried the same way? We can't say with certainty. People die in rockfalls. Accidents happen. But when you consider how much effort his people made to keep him alive, feeding him, nursing his injuries, guiding him through life on one arm and one working eye, it's hard not to believe they honored him in death too. That they said goodbye in some way. That they grieved. And somehow, through layers of rock and time and dust, Drogan survived again, not in body, but in story. The life he lived wasn't easy. It was cold, dangerous, painful, but it was also rich, filled with community, intelligence, kindness, maybe even beauty. And thanks to that final burial collapse, or both, he was preserved, giving us a glimpse not just into what Neanderthals were, but who they were, and who, in some small way, we still are.